Have you ever thought about these big four grade levels all at the same time? That's what I'm going to walk you through today. And here's my take on these big four: grade one, grade four, grade seven, and grade nine. And here's why I think they matter a lot. Here's the kicker: when you look at these grade levels individually, they appear to be pretty straightforward in terms of what the students should acquire. However, when you stack them on top of one another in terms of development and progression, it's possible that our kids are not getting what we think they're getting. And I'm going to show you why. The learning deficits here really start to pile up and stack on top of one another, and that can cause a lot of problems down the line. So let's get into these critical inflection points for our kids. Here we go. Let's start with grade one. Here's why I think it's so critical. The foundations of literacy are really where it's at here in terms of teaching strategies. I also think some of the most talented teachers on the planet are working here at this grade level in grade one. The transition starts to happen more from play-based learning to more tabletop learning, where it's a lot more structured. And here you're going to see a requirement for students to start to build stamina. There's going to be greater emphasis on writing, and the generation of ideas are actually starting to bloom here. There's going to be separation here also for those kids who struggle to focus and pay attention and those that do not. We're slowly starting to build independence, and you're going to see it really start to happen here in grade one. The next phase here is the transition into grade four. So a lot has happened between grade one and four. And you're going to see the learning gaps really start to become apparent for those kids who struggle with literacy and numeracy from A to B. You're going to see all of those executive functioning skills really start to come forward and be relied upon more and more. You're going to see very obviously which ones are working well and where there are going to be deficits. The biggest transition is this. Typically around this time, somewhere towards the end of grade three, beginning of grade four, there's a shift in how kids learn and the purpose. Here's what it is. You're going to see kids shifting from learning to read to reading to learn. Those things become flipped. This is why if those foundational skills from the earlier grades are lagging, they're really going to show up here and continue to stagnate through the junior grades. You're also going to see some social challenges start to pop up here. For example, status, affiliation, who is aligned with who. The small groups start to form, who's in, who's out. That awareness really starts to become more paramount here. So this all adds up to an extra layer of dynamic and complexity for kids here at grade four. Let's talk about grade seven. Depending on your school district, grade seven can be sort of the first taste where kids are experiencing a rotary timetable, where they're moving from different classrooms to different classrooms. It also might be the first time that they're having subject specialty teachers, where they're learning to collaborate with someone who teaches phys ed, someone who teaches art, someone who teaches language. Sometimes that can be a bit of an adjustment for kids in grade seven. More independence here is needed without a shadow of a doubt. The work ethic needs to kick in. You're going to see a greater need for resiliency because things might not be so easy and feel the same as they had in previous years. The social scene is also in full swing here and can become very complex for some. Now we're going to throw in sport, music, other extracurricular activities. So time management really starts to become a requirement. The content of the subjects is also going to become increasingly deeper. And you're going to see projects that have multiple steps, multiple groupings, and longer due dates over lagging periods of time. And for many kids, this is going to feel a lot different from grades 4 to grade 6. The last of the big four is grade 9. And as you know, grade 9 is pivotal. For most kids, they go from having 8 subjects per week or per day down to only 4. Again, semester system and depending on where you live. Here are a few things to consider. There's much less intensive help for the student. So the student's really going to have to learn to advocate for themselves early on, especially to avoid the feeling of being overwhelmed. The social scene is at a whole new level for some kids. It's more intense, it's more complicated, and it's always shifting. For some, it's going to feel like they're on 24/7. At school, the level of freedom also increases because adult supervision is really starting to scale back a little bit. There is much more emphasis on personal responsibility and accountability, and the stakes become higher for things that get overlooked or left until the last possible minute. Academics are also hitting harder because classes are longer and more intense. Focus and attention need to be paramount. Planning and organization will also be essential tools. The constant exposure to older kids, brothers or sisters, friends of friends, can also be an interesting challenge. Extracurriculars again here and sport become increasingly more important. You'll see maybe older friendships wane and shift to the formation of new ones. And many kids find their tribe here somewhere in grade 9. And unfortunately, some don't either. And that can make for a very lonely year.